Hey everyone, welcome to Project Esports for June 17th, 2019. As always, I'm your host, Andrew Nimsgren, for Project Esports each and every week. Alongside me, I have the meme king, Dylan Beal himself, ready to talk about some magic, ready to talk about whatever else he's going to go on about. And as always, we are going to have an awesome guest host with us this week because James is still out. This week we have Dr. Drew Schwartz with us today. Why don't you tell just kind of a little bit about you? I know we're going to spend some time kind of getting to know you a little bit towards the end of the podcast, but just kind of a short little spiel about who you are, why you're kind of here talking with us, what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm assuming everyone's like, who's this random in here? But yeah, my name is Dr. Drew Schwartz. I'm a chiropractor in Cleveland, and I am a lifetime gamer. And so I got into esports with my blog last year, trying to combine the two. So obviously, helping people is kind of what chiropractors do in the medical field. But I also wanted to do something in the esports field because I love playing video games. I play a lot of PUBG. I play a lot of League of Legends. I tried Fortnite, not a fan, but that's fine. So I wanted to combine the two. So I started my blog where I wanted to have a space for gamers, streamers, and desk workers to have a spot where there's information everywhere on the internet, right? So I wanted to have somewhere where you could look up like my wrist is hurting, what can I do to prevent that? My back is hurting, what can I do to prevent that? I'm thinking about getting a new chair. What should I look for in a chair? So I wanted to kind of get a resource where you could kind of go and have all that in one spot. And so I started my blog last year, and I started
And what's the name
just
of
kind
that
of
blog, and where can they find it?
oh, plugs, nice. So it's called For the Wellness Blog. So it's FTW blog, kind of like for the win, but for the wellness. And yeah, you can find me on the socials, obviously Twitter
Yeah,
and LinkedIn. I actually do quite a bit in Twitter. I'm getting back in the Twitter train after I was on Instagram, and that's just Twitter's a lot more fun.
yeah.
So
I've
yeah,
definitely kind of gone that way too. Twitter, I mean, Twitter's so much easier just to tweet random things about versus
yeah.
Instagram. Everything feels super prepared. But I was kind of looking over the website. I actually have one question. You said you're from originally from northern Minnesota. Where are you at from there?
So like way up north in a town of 600 people. So
Okay.
it's called Sabika
Okay. No,
or
I just know
no
I'm
no no
from
you're
Western
not.
Wisconsin, so I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
nice.
maybe there's a chance I've heard of it. I know a couple places up there,
So
but
like in between Duluth, if you're looking at the maps, like Duluth, Fargo, and I'm like right in the middle of those two.
okay. So I know the
Yeah,
general area then, so still quite a few hours away from me. But I just love
yeah.
always kind of seeing there's not many people in
It's like
esports in
3 hours from the
Wisconsin.
airport, which is terrible. So I fly home to the airport, and it's 3.5 hour drive. So it's pretty sweet. Yeah,
But yeah, thank you so much for kind of being on today. It'll be super fun. It'll be super interesting to get to talk to you more about for the wellness and all that kind of stuff later on in the show. And we kind of do a little mini interview. It's something we don't do too often, but it's super light news week, so I think it'd be really fun to kind of talk more to you about that. But for those of you that do not know, Project Esports is a weekly esports podcast that live streams every Monday on twitch.tv/popped_off at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, where we talk about the biggest stories, news, and esports from the previous week. Today we have things talking about Riot being investigated by California for sexual what is it? Not harassment, gender
Gender
discrimination.
discrimination.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Dylan. Epic Game failing to pay competitive Fortnite players, and a lot more, including Magic the Gathering again. But with that, we do not have any major housekeeping today, so why don't we jump right into that first story, which is going to be that Riot story about California investigating them. So if somehow you kind of into esports and you haven't heard too much about it, a while back there was a huge article kind of put out, or even a feature put out in Riot Games, kind of talking about everything that's kind of been going on there, the hiring practices, a dude bro culture, all that kind of stuff, and it was a very big deal, and there's still repercussions coming from that, from walkouts, from this kind of talent leaving the studio and all that kind of stuff, and they still haven't really recovered. And just now, it's kind of been put out that the state of California is actually now stepping in and looking at the whole company as a whole for gender discrimination. Um, Kotaku kind of put it out. There's not too much on it still. It's still kind of very early on into this, but there's a lot of ways I can take this. And I think the question I kind of want to ask you is, do we feel like it is to the point that the state of California really needed to step in? Do we think this sets a precedent that we're going to see this more often in gaming companies? That it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing? Either one of you can kind of start on that if you have any immediate opinions.
Well, I looked into it. I'm not gonna lie, I had to look up forced arbitration. Like, I was like, well, what is this? So, I kind of went through that deep dive, and I read the Kotaku article as well. Yeah, that's tough because you've been hearing. I think the Kotaku article came out like August of last year,
Yeah, the big
and
one, yeah.
yeah, and then it's just constantly like it's almost been a year, right? And it's still in the news, which is not good for any company, and I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't think that the state of California has anything to gain from them making this like public, like a public discord of it. But I think it's something that needs to get addressed because I mean, I've read like numerous articles on it, and it's always the same. It's just like a frat. They said it's like a bro culture, frat party, whatever you want to call it. And that's rough. Like some of the stuff they were saying there, like you can't say on this podcast.
Yeah.
So I think it's a huge change that needs to be made.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've been talking about this basically since August of last year, like coming up on a year now. And I mean, I think we had generally the same take all the way through that. Obviously, this is terrible, and even though it's really bad, it kind of makes sense, like especially for the sphere that it's in. I mean, you hear a lot of these same stories about like Silicon Valley in general. That like it is like you hear about like tech bros and stuff like that, and it is that culture. So I mean, it's not only Riot, but I would say probably a lot of those startup areas have that kind of culture that um, really needs to be changed from the inside. And hopefully, with all the issues in Riot coming out, that's going to have a lot of other culture shifts at a lot of other companies. I mean, that's one thing I really hope that we see out of this. So hopefully, with the state of California getting involved, it's going to get more press, it's going to get more exposure, and this is conversations that not only are we going to be talking about, but employers and then companies within themselves are going to be talking about. So hopefully, it's going to push a lot of other companies to do better because a lot of companies need to do better.
I really agree in that. And why we kind of keep kind of talking about this, there was an official statement that they kind of shared with Kotaku, and I want to kind of bring that in as I was kind of talking about that. But this is coming from Riot Games. We've been in active conversations with DFEH, the Department of Fair Employment, something. Since the inquiry began, investigations like this can arise when there have been allegations of workplace disparity. We've been cooperating with good faith with the DFEH to address these concerns. During this time, we promptly responded to the requests and have produced over 2,500 pages of documents, several thousand lines of pay data so far. We also made several requests, participants to call us with their address to request. To date, these requests have been unanswered, so frankly, we're disappointed to see the issue a press release alleging that we've been non-cooperative. We're confident that there's been substantial progress on diversity, inclusion, and company culture. Look forward to continuing demonstrating this to the DFEH. So, whichever party is actually being true, if both are being as cooperative, you never really know because it's all kind of internal politics and that kind of stuff. But personally, I think this isn't going to be as big and as groundbreaking as we think it's going to be with them really getting involved. I think really there was a lot of pressure being put onto them through the walkouts, through people in the industry that have really not let Ride live it down. Like you said, we've been talking about this since last August. It has not gone off the conversation table since then. And this might bring the scope to a bigger population. I don't think that's always a good thing. I mean, we've seen when bad news in gaming and esports reaches the public masses, it really just kind of brings that whole idea of how bad gaming is and how unfair and how nerdy and all that kind of stuff it is. And I feel like that's the only thing this is going to do is to bring that general general population into it, looking down onto it rather than forcing Riot to make more changes. Guys,
But I mean,
that's
that's just a side effect, though. I mean, this is a side effect of like them not doing what they should be doing. And I mean, yeah, it sucks that the general population is going to have to hear about, this gaming company being bad, but this gaming company is being bad. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it sucks. It sucks that people are going to turn on CNN and, I might talk to my grandparents or whatever, and they'd be like, "Oh, I heard this that League of Legends video games is hates women." I'll be like, "Well,
you
kind
don't
of. Like
you don't play
you're not
that
wrong."
game, do you? And you're like, no, I would never play a game like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bunch of like, this goes back to that forced arbitration, but it also goes back to the whole culture thing too. Is for instance Uber, like Uber, it was terrible. All the stuff that was coming out, like it was literally, it was for I was like 2 or 3 months where it was like almost every day there was something else just crazy come out of Uber. Yeah, you know, it is, people are going to talk about it, it's going to look at a negative light, and that probably really helped lift, honestly. But at the same time, it's like painful conversations that I think really need to happen, because otherwise it's just, I mean, it's not good. Like, I run a business, and granted it's not as big as that, but I have 2 employees. Like, I would never promote a culture like that. That's, I mean, I can't even fathom that. So I think it's a step in the right direction. And especially in California, like you said with Silicon Valley, I think that's going to be, it might take a step for those guys to get in the right direction as well. So I think that, that was a really good point as far as the Silicon Valley stuff too.
Yeah, I guess I don't have a ton left with it. I just think we're kind of starting to see it in gaming industry as a whole and esports as well, but we're kind of hopefully seeing some of that OG culture is kind of finally going away. I mean, when esports and Riot started, the entire culture and how people were treated and how things were treated, were so much different. I think now any companies that are still like that are being called out, and hopefully those are going away. So I think Riot is definitely a huge name in esports, and seeing them be called out and be the big topic for about a year now is definitely going to be good for the industry as a whole. Because clearly, if Riot can get called out for it, anyone in esports can. So hopefully that kind of prohibits from happening in the future. But that's really only a hope. I mean, you never know what happen. But I think as shitty as this conversation really is, and that it's been going on for so long, in the long term, it is going to be good for games. Anything that's calling out gender discrimination or anything like that is going to be. But
Yeah.
any closing points on this conversation or anything else you want to bring up or kind of talk about? I'm gonna kind of
yeah.
I want to kind of leave that open if we want to kind of get off topic today, because it is a very light news story. We're a fourth of the way done through our news stories already. So if we do want to go off on tangents that we normally do, we do have the time for one. So I just want to always leave that open if we want to talk about something else. But if not, Dylan, let's talk about Magic to yourself, because you're the only one that plays it.
All right. Buckle up, everyone. So I'm gonna give you the rundown. And we're gonna take it from there. Okay. So basically, Magic the Gathering has been getting into esports scene because they released a digital card game, or digital version of their card game called MTG Arena. It's been doing very, very well, and it's now positioned to compete very heavily against other, huge esport trading card games like Hearthstone. And so it's been getting into the esports news recently because they've revamped how their pro system works. So before there was MTGA, basically everyone just played in paper for the most part, like the physical Magic game. But now they're reworking how that pro scene works. So they're just calling it esports in general. So even their paper version, they're still calling esports. Yeah, but they're considering that all their competitive branches are now just esports, just to keep things simple, because they really are the same game. The only big difference is that one is in paper and one is digital. For the most part, there's other semantic things, but if you're physically playing the game, that's the only difference. So they created this thing called the Magic Pro League, where they wanted to put players on a salary and promote the game and have people on Twitch watch it and follow the league. Now, the issue with it is that it was absolutely terrible. It wasn't really a good viewing experience. The format they were doing didn't have really good games, and it's just been a huge mess. No one knows how to actually earn a spot into it. It feels like they just took a bunch of pros randomly and just kind of threw them in there. And it kind of is culminating to this point of where recently, I guess, famous card game person Brian Kibler called him out. And I say famous card game person because Brian Kibler is like one of the biggest names in all card games. So he originally got his fame from Magic the Gathering. He was a pro player. He was one of the best. I'm pretty sure he's a Hall of Famer. Then he
wait. The Hall of Fame for Magic the Gathering?
Yes, there is.
Is there like an official induction ceremony?
I don't know if there's a ceremony, but there is, a Hall of Fame because it is a very, very old game.
I guess this game's been
Magic has
around
been
forever.
going on for more than any esport out there, so it's a very, very old.
Is there like a split in the community between like paper and electronic?
Sort of.
Or yeah,
There's
because I was
sort of.
wondering that when you were saying that, like if it's paper form. Like the old school dudes are like, I'm not going electronic, and then the other kids are like, what's paper? So it's like,
Yeah. So they did have a digital version called MTG Magic the Gathering Online. So you could play in a digital format, but it was just like not well designed or anything. And so there isn't a giant split. There is a small one. But most of the split is basically just a lot of people who play MTG Arena are a lot more casual because it's free to get in. It has the Hearthstone model of where you have to buy packs and everything, but there you can't buy physical cards, so the economy is completely different. I don't want to go into the economy of MTG Online because that old game you can buy individual cards, but you can also sell individual cards, and then there's a whole bunch of crazy, like if you had like one of every card in a set, you could trade that in to Wizards of the Coast and get the physical version. So the economy is really weird for that. But yeah, so Brian Kibler, he was famous there. Then he went on to play Hearthstone once Magic had like a little slump. I would say right when Hearthstone was coming out, it was like in a bit of a slump. People weren't playing it as much, and so he went on and played Hearthstone, and he was famous there. He's a famous content creator, which most of the people watching the show, if they know Kibler, they probably know him from Hearthstone. But recently, with Magic getting big, he kind of got back into it, and he came out and was like, yeah, the MPL kind of sucks. It's not really all that good. Wizards needs to be doing a lot better about this, and it's kind of not great, which is a big deal because right now, like he is like one of the big faces of just like card games in general, and even Magic. Like if you think about Magic, you think about him. Like if you're a casual viewer, like him and Day Nine basically are like the faces of Magic right now, and like the big personalities. So this is kind of a big deal.
So does the community agree with him? I guess if
Yes.
so, the community does agree with him because, like, if a big Hall of Famer said something, no one agrees with them. It doesn't really mean anything. But if the community does agree with them, what do you think are they actually doing wrong? Then, like, what can they do better?
I don't really know. So the unfortunate thing about Magic is that everyone is always going to disagree with what they're doing, regardless. Everyone's going to think the system isn't good.
Oh, so you mean the online
Um,
community in the general?
yeah, I was gonna say like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but this one, I mean, if you have like, because there's been players that dropped out of it because it's not good, because they don't like the way that it's
They
run.
dropped out
So
of both, or they like switched from Magic
no,
to
so
Hearthstone.
they dropped out of this Magic Pro League specifically.
Okay.
So they dropped out of that, which is a huge deal because this is supposed to be the thing that Magic Pros earn a living off of. Because before this, it was incredibly hard to earn a living by just playing Magic because you had to fly out to tournaments and they were very expensive, and it's really hard to win a top 8 of a tournament when it's all open and you have thousands of people playing, and like it's a card game, so yeah, you can be really good and place top 8 consistently, but sometimes you're just going to get unlucky sometimes and get knocked out, and there's really nothing you can do sometimes.
Yeah, because I was watching a couple of his videos, and he was saying something like, "Yeah, you can be one of the best players, but you can get hit by RNG pretty hard. And even though the best player, I think he said something like the best player isn't going to always win, right? But they'll place consistently. But sometimes you just get RNG, you just get screwed.
Yeah,
You know?
and it's really bad because if you're hoping to win that tournament or place for that tournament because you need a paycheck to pay the bills, then like it really sucks. So this was a way to kind of offset that by giving players a way to play the game consistently and get paid for it. And if you're having players go, this isn't good, I don't want to do this even though I'm getting a salary for it, that's a really big deal. That's really bad.
Yeah, because his video was saying something like, and one of the big points was he was saying there's no like direction, there's no like you can't like if you have a favorite player and they're in that tournament, sometimes they won't be featured, so you just can't watch them. Period. Right? And
Yeah.
my connection with that is when you build a fan base, you need to have a connection, right, with a player. I equate it to like the old school. If you remember the old Cloud9 roster with like Meteos and High and Sneaky and all those guys, like yeah, they weren't the best, but everybody loved them. And Cloud9, I think that really helped propel Cloud9 because you know you know they're not doing the best in the tournaments or anything like that. But man, everyone loved watching them. Everyone loved the content they were creating. And if you don't have a connection, like with a game like Magic or something like that, you're not going to grow a community base. You're not going to get like the casual observers to follow it because everyone's like, well, I can't watch my favorite player. I don't have a connection with them. There's no content. There's no anything like that. So, I mean, what's the point
Yeah,
to watch
No,
her?
I,
You're
no,
trying to join.
exactly.
I love that point, and I think more than even in traditional sports, I think having a personal brand, and I think that's why Twitch streaming's so big now, is that if you're not constantly in the eyes of the consumers, especially people that play a lot of games, spend a lot of time online, you can get left behind, and they can move on to different content creator, different players, something like that, so quickly, especially in esports and just kind of video games as a whole, because there's always so much in front of you. There are thousands of Twitch streamers. Like if you're not constantly building your brand, interacting, go to the back. 100 Thieves, they're not the greatest organization in a lot of things outside of the Call of Duty World League, really,
Yeah,
but people love them. They're a huge brand. People talk about
I
them
love
all
them.
the time
Yeah.
in esports. That's because of their brand and the content they create. So I think that's a great point. I can actually see why that pisses off a lot of Magic pros. That yeah, if you're the best player in the world and not featured, like what good is that for them?
And yeah, it's on like the player, to make their own stuff, but it's also on the company as well. The company, I don't want to say owes it to the player, but the reason that company's making money is because the people watching them want to play that game and be like them, right? So I think the company also has a somewhat obligation to be like, all right, we need to help support these guys, get some content out for them. They're not going to get picked up by a huge, like 100 Thieves isn't going to be like, yo, we need to hire a Magic person today, right? So if it's a smaller genre, I think they need to have something where the company says, we need to promote, we need to get some content, we need to have relatability to these players for our brand to grow as well. So
No, and
No,
I
yeah, and
like that.
that's
So
exactly right because we saw companies like Tempo Storm, like teams like that, picking up Magic players recently, basically just to be streamers. They're not picking them up to play professionally, like go out to all these events and play. They mostly just want them to stream because like we were saying about the personality, streaming is like the ultimate form of like seeing a player's personality. You just get direct access to them. You get to see them playing, only them playing, and that's what a lot of teams are investing in is players as personalities rather than just going out and competing.
yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. Like I use an example like Trick2G, who plays League of Legends, right? He's like plat, low diamond most of the time, right? He's not a Masters player, but he's a personality and he's a content creator that is just crazy and does like insane stuff. It's really fun to watch, but he's not the best. So it's not like these guys have to go and get the best. You're looking for a good personality to promote the game.
yeah, I honestly nowadays I think a personality is as important, if not more than important, than being skilled. Especially in games
Yeah.
like Fortnite and stuff like that. There are, I mean, you see new people getting into the like the World Cup and all that kind of stuff every single chance they get, and some random people win it sometimes. I mean, I remember some random kid beat Ninja in one of his own tournaments and stuff like that. Like in Fortnite and games like that, there's so many competitive people that if you don't have a personality, you're not Twitch streaming and having people want to watch you unless you're number one in the world. It doesn't matter. He's a mediocre player with a fantastic attitude or personality will probably be more popular and do better than a high skilled player that doesn't stream that has no personality or antisocial. I think that comes where a lot of the Magic issues is smaller niche esports. The personalities matter just as much as the skill because that's what get people in the doors and get people watching. So
Yeah, and I think another point he said in his video was like, "There's no world champion. Like, how do you have an esport and have no world champion?" Or I think, like one of them, I think Magic doesn't even have a playoff. And I was
No,
like, "How the heck do you not have a world champion in esport?" That's like not only big for the sport, but it's big for the person to put on the resume. To get
that's how
sponsorships and
competitive
stuff.
things work.
Yeah,
Someone
yeah,
has
yeah,
to like win it. Someone has to be the best.
yeah.
So
so yeah, because the way that they do it is it's basically like a bunch of smaller tournaments, and they'll have like four smaller tournaments, and then from there they might have qualifiers that lead to a bigger tournament, but it's not the end of the year tournament or anything. It's like a constant season that's always going. You're always playing Magic. There's always tournaments. It never stops.
So there's
So
not like
that's why they're
splits, like an LCS where it's like a spring and a summer, or
no, because it's not. It doesn't really reflect what you would think of as like an esport. Like it doesn't necessarily work like that. So
yeah.
you do have like things that are like mythic championships, they call them. There's about 4 of them a year, and you could play like you can play online and qualify for one of those and play and win one of those. But those are very like those are 4 times a year. But you also have other tournaments like they have big events called Magic Fest. So there was actually one here in DC where I live, where they did have a main event and they had a winner of the main event, but it's very standalone of where you just win that event. And that's the same for all of these. Of you might win one of these mythic championships, but you don't build up to like a big world tournament or a big end of the year thing. It's more of just there's a tournament here in DC this month. There's a tournament there in Tokyo another month. There's like all these different tournaments. So it doesn't really
Um,
build up to anything. It's just like constant tournaments.
would it be that hard for them to be like, all right, we're gonna kind of revamp this? You get so many, like each of these would get you get like a point system. Like if you won like the
They
Japan
do.
one,
They kind
yeah,
of do something similar, which they might figure it out. They might
yeah,
figure it out like that, but it is really weird because for them, Magic isn't about the top level pros and having people watch them. It's about people like me, where I'm not great at the game. Like I'm not going to top 8 any tournaments, but I'm going to go and play if it's in DC, and that's their main driver is the huge, like I would say like
community,
bottom tier, yeah, the huge
yeah,
community because they want people to buy packs
yeah,
essentially. So
yeah,
they're going to try to incentivize people to go out to these tournaments. They're going to try to incentivize them to buy cards and to buy packs because at the end of the day, they're a card game, and that's what they need to do to stay afloat. They're not banking off of skins and games to make money, or they're not
yeah.
banking off of Twitch views. They're banking off of selling real product, and so they're going to kind of go after the general audience, which there's got to be a balance. I mean, there's got to be a balance definitely for it, but I think it's going to be a lot of growing pains because Magic isn't a traditional esport, and if it wants to move into that space, they need to flex and do something different somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, I think we've talked about this a lot. And the best way to he's going forward would it be to look at it in a while and see if they do take away. Right now, we can talk about all the things they need to change, how other esports do, and all that kind of stuff. But I think seeing they've been called out, seeing how they respond and what they do going forward, I think is going to be the biggest part of this discussion. And obviously, we can't have that conversation right now today. So I think kind of wrapping this up here, unless either one of you have one more kind of point to make about anything, kind of going off, because I think, yeah, what I'm really curious about is I'm actually interested in this. Never thought I'd be interested in a Magic conversation you guys have had. But I'm actually really into this and kind of curious to see where it goes. So I think, yeah, maybe following up on this in a month or two after a couple things go on and see how they make change.
Yeah, I guess the last point I want to leave off on is I really hope the esport takes off. I really, really do because I don't think I've been a part of a community that was like as great and diverse as Magic, except maybe fighting games. But it's a really awesome group of people there, and everyone coming from different walks of life is really awesome to see, especially in person. So I hope they make it really good because I want more in person things like this actually drive other people out there. One day maybe we'll get you out there, Andrew.
Yeah, good luck with that one because you know what's a super inclusive and great community to be a part of that I cannot get enough of? The Fortnite community.
Oh,
It's just so many screaming kids and people getting upset, and it's just everything about that community is fantastic. But no, we're not here to talk about the community. We're here to talk about Epic Games and something that honestly really surprises me. So, an article came out on Esports based off of a Reddit post the other day. So, apparently, Epic Games owes like 30,000 people. So, kind of going back a long thread, I'm going to summarize these things to the article. The article is from Esports, written by Bernardo Viana. We'll post that and everything, so go check out and give them a click. But, so apparently, teams like Fnatic, TSM, E11, and Team Secret have all claimed that, like in mid-May, they still hadn't been paid for some tournaments going all the way back to February. So looks like the earliest are pre-World Cup tests and the Secret Skirmish. Both have not been paid yet. I'm like, okay, not that long. So we keep kind of going down, So Epic's updating all this kind of constantly of when payments go out and all that kind of stuff, being super transparent about that. Super cool. So they're supposed to have 43 2 43 280 no 43,285 payments promised due to professional competitions that started in July of 2018 with Summer Skirmish. The company said it has only sent out 4,398, 10% of the total, with a little over 1,500 still waiting on player confirmation to send them, and that they still have not put out 37,200 payments. 86% of what's promised related to World Cup qualifiers are things due to still waiting to view all of it, take out ineligible players, cheaters, all that kind of stuff. That's all fair game, but the fact that they haven't done 86% of their payments since last year when this all started, and they said that any player that earned prize money in the qualifiers have only 45 days to send in valid information, or if they don't, they just don't get the money.
I mean, how do they not, like, when you sign up for a tournament, hey, fill out this form so we can pay you?
So yeah, so you're not super
I'm
familiar
really
with Fortnite.
confused.
So how it works is that it's in-game client. So you can just click on the game mode and do qualifiers, and if you make it the top end, then you go on the tournament. So it's all online based, is why a lot of that problems kind of come up, that they're not land based like so many other things. But even so, with it being online based, the fact that they've only
Uh,
qualified or even thinking about 14% of their 37,000 payments, crazy to me. So
yeah.
I guess there's a lot of talk about Fortnite Esports. Like, hearing this fact that so many people aren't even getting paid because of who knows what, because of review up to a year before. Like, what are you guys thinking about all this?
Sounds like classic esports. People not
I was
getting
just gonna
paid.
say that. I was literally, that was one of my main points. Was like, that's esports. So there's that.
But I mean, so we've seen teams not playing players, like these little startup teams promising the world, never paying, all that kind of stuff. But this is Epic Games. This is a
Yeah.
person that has promised
They're
$100
not
million
strapped for cash.
in prize money for like esports and all that kind of stuff. And like, it's just, I don't know, like you wouldn't see this happening with Riot, I feel like. Sure, there's a lot of payments to small amounts to individual players and verifying and all that kind of stuff, but you're dumping countless $1 million into this and you can't even get the money to people who should be getting it.
Well, I looked at their blog post and like they have like a chart, and so it was from the time that they said like in July until April, they had paid out like the amount of players was relatively small compared to what they are um, going from like April to now, right? Like the numbers were really skewed towards huge amounts of players in the recent ones, and the before that, the spring, summer, winter last year, they paid out like decent, like it was a decent percentage of the players, so it wasn't a ton, but the amount of players from that period until from April to summer is massive. Like it's not even close. So I can see where the percentage gets skewed really bad because the amount of players in that pool was really small prior. But still, like, how do you not pay people? And you're just making bank.
Dylan, I know where you're about to go with this. Don't go based off of what chat. I just want to kind of hear what you want. I want to ask that question afterward. So, just what are your initial thoughts of this before we kind of go a different direction with it?
Uh, Epic Games bad? I mean, I don't really know what the thought is supposed to be. I mean, pay people. You're a big company. Just pay them.
And I mean, I understand. I feel, or I mean, do you think the 45 days to get in correct information, all that kind of stuff, is fair? Do you think methods and what they're doing it are unfair? Do you feel like they should have more than 45 days to try to put in information? Do you think that's a fine number?
I don't know. I mean, I think you should. I mean, you should be communicating very openly. You definitely. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be at this point. Like you should be communicating with everyone. You should be like, hey, like here's what's going on. Here's when you can expect payments. We're a big company. We're gonna pay you. Like it shouldn't be this big of a deal. Like it really shouldn't.
Yeah, I feel like the esports community and even the online gaming community, if you mess up, like at least if you mess up, be transparent about it, right? And say like, all right, we messed up. This is how we're fixing it. Blah blah blah. But when you do something like, for instance, like Destiny or something like that, when it just got terrible and no one knew what was going on or what was going to happen with the game or what the progression was going to be, you lose players, you lose interest, and people don't stand for that. And especially like the gaming community is really passionate. So if you're not transparent and you're just kind of like slowly leaking stuff, I mean, the gaming community is gonna turn on you.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. Like own up to like, hey, we messed up really bad, but this is how we're gonna fix it. And you need to have like not daily posts. We need to have like weekly posts. Like, hey, this is how we progress this week. This is how we progress this week, and I think that would help out a lot.
So the question I want to kind of go off onto this, I don't want to take too long on this, but should developers be the ones running the esports? Tino's King brought it up in chat. Should every company be hiring out to professional event and league organizers, like the people that organize the NFL and all that kind of stuff? Should they be the ones doing it? Should they be hiring enough staff internally to doing it? What is the best way for developers to run their leagues, internally or externally?
I honestly don't know the right answer for this.
Yeah.
This is like one thing I would say, like, I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough to know the answer to this, which is probably a Project Esports first of me not just saying things to say things, but I really don't know because it's really tough because I know of a lot of tournaments out there that are run by the community that do amazing things and they're wonderful and they're great. But I guess it depends on what the goal is. Is the goal to have really good tournaments that people enjoy? Then yeah, probably the community, have the community run it. But do you want something that is huge? Do you want something that is groundbreaking and giant and that pays out players a ton of money? Maybe you want the game developers to be doing that then. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like like you said, if you want something to be, well, for instance, magic. Like if you want something where the community has a ton of fun, then I think that's really good. You want to have an engagement like that. But if you're in it to like, look, we got to make a ton of hype. We don't want to make a ton of money, like Epic is doing. I think you want to hire pros. I don't, that's the classic thing. If you don't know how to do something, get someone that does.
Yeah.
And
I totally agree. Hire gamers.
Yeah, and we do see that. I mean, Epic could turn this around. I mean, they did just hire Nate Nazar, the man that built the Overwatch League. So I mean, maybe that is them seeing that they're not doing this well. They want to take it seriously because they've announced that he will be doing primarily Fortnite. So I mean,
Yeah.
they're hiring someone that knows how to build leagues. So maybe next year for their esports effort, we see something different. I like bringing the questions, but yeah, I just agree that there's a lot of game devs that don't know how to do things right, and there's some that do it well. I think Riot has figured out esports pretty damn well. They do the LCS, the LEC. I feel like it's all organized. There's not ever major issues and all that kind of stuff. I feel like a lot of that runs pretty smoothly compared to some other esports. So I think some could use help. I think some do it fine. So it's just a question that I thought I was curious to kind of see what you guys think about internally, externally. Like you said, we've seen two examples of people that did not run their leagues well: Magic and Fortnite, and we have Owl and we have League. Always two sides of the same coin. But anything else we want to kind of talk about this? I mean, yeah, Epic bad. Pay your people. Figure out what you gotta do to get that done. Is there anything else we really want to say about this?
No, I mean, Riot with the franchising, I think did a really good job, and even between the regions, I think there's a difference between, like, look at LEC and NA, like LCS. I think LEC does an amazing job with their personalities and their teams and getting really cool sponsorships. And I mean, I obviously live in North America, but I love watching LEC. I mean, just the production just feels so much better. I like the personalities more. Um, so I mean, like you said, I think Riot just did a really good job, and I think Call of Duty's doing franchising as well.
Call of
Right?
Duty World League should be
Yeah.
launching next year. So yeah, more.
Yeah.
I don't think franchising is right for everything. But I think for some of these bigger ones, it is. I think Call of Duty should work. I think I will work. But franchising is a big conversation we've talked about a lot, and it's right for some, it's wrong for others. So it's hard to just say franchising works for everything, but I think that's the answer for some esports, and I don't think it'll ever work for Fortnite. Though.
No, I think Fortnite's going to be something where it's more um, like a huge community hype train, where it's like huge production and everything like that, and everyone tunes in and watches it on Twitch like on a Friday night or something like that. I think that's more of the realm.
Kind of like what Friday Night Fortnite used to be. I
Yeah.
feel like that's when kind of competitive and all that kind of. But I want to have time to talk to you about this. Still, talk to you about everything you're doing still. So I want to kind of jump into our last story for the day. And I want to talk about Dylan's favorite thing. The military getting involved in esports. He's extremely passionate about this, and he cannot get enough of it. Right, Dylan?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll give the rundown. All right, let me put on my professional hat for this one, I guess. So I will just give you the story. So the U.S. Army has a program called BOSS, which is Better Opportunities for Single Soldiers. Which, when they say single soldiers, they literally mean single soldiers. These soldiers who don't have a wife, girlfriend, husband, boyfriend, any significant other at home. And the program is partnering up with Complexity, who we know in the news, who recently got picked up by the company that owns the Cowboys. And so what they're going to be doing with this partnership is that they're going to have two events. So the first is that soldiers are going to go to the Complexity, I think, team house in Texas. And the players are going to participate in military style drills along with active soldiers and have a 3-day boot camp to train them in discipline and resilience. And the second event is there's going to be like this gaming boot camp that they're going to do across. They're going to be traveling for this and doing like a gaming boot camp. Yeah, and it's going to lead up to like a tournament. The public isn't the public isn't gonna be able to participate in the tournament. And you're gonna be able to watch us all on Army Entertainment, which is a Twitch channel that is out there, I guess.
I mean, I know how you feel about this, but I just want to see a bunch of esports pros just doing army drills. I think that will be entertaining.
What I put too. I was like, man, to watch these guys fail on like rope ladder or something like that. Oh, man, that's gonna be good.
So, Dylan, you can go ahead and take off your professional hat for a moment. I'd like to speak your thoughts on it. I mean, I don't have too much about it. I'm kind of in the middle about this. I know it's a marketing tactic to get younger people in and all that kind of stuff. And I feel one way or another about it. But I know you.
Yeah, so let me start off with a positive note, I guess. I think the overall idea of this Better Opportunities for Single Soldiers program is a good thing. I really like programs like this for soldiers. I think we should definitely be taking care of not only our active soldiers, but our veterans as well. I think that's something that we're very, very lacking on in America. And I think, programs like this are very, very good. But I think this instance is really weird and I don't like it at all. It's really weird to me because we talked about this before and it seems uh, very predatory, I guess, towards recruitment. Definitely against the whole idea of like recruitment on this level, especially when you're targeting people who are so young, people who might not know the consequences of the action that they're about to go into, because it is a really big decision, and a lot of people decide to go into it and. The military is a good thing for employment. I mean, I think the military is the largest employer of LGBT Q plus members in America, especially Americans who are trans as well. So, I mean, there is a definite good thing that is provided to them, to all Americans out there, but it is a huge, huge thing to go into. And especially targeting gamers who tend to be a lot younger, in high school, just coming out of high school. It's really weird to me. Having like the Twitch channel to reach out to people who are so young is really weird to me. And I don't like it. I mean, we talked about this before, like the army having a presence at like PAX and stuff like that. And it's weird. I don't like it. And I really wish they wouldn't do it. Even though I really like the program that they're doing, this part of I don't like it. I really don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It was just a weird partnership for me to see. I was like, I mean, I get why the army's doing it. I get that aspect, but at the same time, like when I saw this, I did like a double take. I was like, why would you want to do this? You know, although I do think it's good. Like the army, the guys in the army are able to go see because they said something about they're going to go see the complexity headquarters and that
Yeah.
amazing facility they get to have. And one of the big things I thought that they had mentioned in there was like their mind gym. I think that anything dealing with mental health for anybody is going to be amazing, and I think that could be a really good aspect for them. So I was excited about the pros rather than the cons for the army to get to see, for the veterans and the active members to get to see that amazing facility and get to play like video games with some of the guys that they look up to, and be in that mind gym and get like some cool mental things that they can do for scenarios for them. So I think that was a good aspect. But like you mentioned, it was just like the partnership is so random. It's just you're just like, why? But
Yeah, so what
I
this definitely
like
seems
everything about it except the motivation behind it. It's kind of where I think a lot of us lies. Like the program, the idea of it isn't bad, but what they hope to gain out of it is.
yeah,
Is that kind of where you stand, Dylan? Like you're not against the actual event. The actual event
yeah.
isn't bad. It's what they want that event to lead.
Well, well, I don't know. I mean, the act like the idea of like glorifying like the that type of culture, I definitely don't like. But what this seems like to me is that the program itself internally is trying to do a really good thing. They were like, hey, let's try to get some of some of these soldiers out to complexity so they can see these esports athletes. That'd be really good for them. And then probably someone in the higher end was like, how can we turn this into propaganda though? Like that's what it seems like to me, is that internally the program was probably like, let's just do this thing because people, the soldiers would really like it. But on the back end, they're like, all right, well, we need to make sure this is like financially viable to us. We need to make sure we're going to get our ROI on this. And to them, that was the spinning it into this weird recruitment thing.
That makes sense, but it's yeah. I think we're all kind of in the middle ground. I think Dylan's a little more tired to back, but I'm really in the middle ground about that because, like you said, there was a good idea that people wanted to get something good out of this, and they turned it into something else. So, I mean, anything else on this topic or anything else that you guys kind of came up with, kind of touching back on anything, kind of little tangents that we want to go back and touch on?
no. I was glad I learned something about magic today, though.
I know.
So
I'm a little happy with the magic section too. I think
yeah,
that was one of our longest topics today, and I
because
usually try to push through that as fast as possible.
I think I watched a Netflix documentary on that on the Netflix. I think they had a documentary on. It's probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I think it's like an older one, but I watched the whole thing and I was like, that's pretty cool. Like the community just looks so tight knit. It looked, it like you said, it was just totally diverse. Like everyone was completely different, which was awesome to see, and to see it so close knit was really cool
Yeah.
compared to like a community like League where it's like super toxic.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
don't get me wrong. Like the Magic community is very toxic.
oh
There,
yeah,
there is a huge chunk of people who are very toxic, but there's
yeah.
a lot of really good members in the community. And if you want more Magic the Gathering on Netflix, there's gonna be a TV show coming out pretty soon that's gonna deal with the lore of Magic the Gathering.
Oh, I
Oh,
remember seeing that.
nice. Is
From
it
the
gonna be
creators
like an
of
animated or?
Yes, and it's
Oh, I did see that. That's
I
right.
forget the company that's doing it, but it's like a really big deal,
Yeah.
like company that's doing it, that's doing the animation. So it's gonna be good.
that'll be interesting. But for the rest of this episode, I want to kind of turn the conversation towards you, Drew, and just kind of talk to you a little bit about what you're doing and kind of what you think really needs to kind of be fixed from your kind of perspective on a lot of esports and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, you're a chiropractor. You focus much more on trying to make people better, really, and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And you're obviously been a gamer forever. And I guess I didn't really come up with a question because I wanted the conversation to kind of flow wherever kind of naturally flowed. And Dylan, if you do have any questions, feel free to pop in at any time. But what do you think? I mean, gamers are commonly known for being unhealthy and not in the greatest shape and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And is that really is that what made you want to try to combine the two? Is that you think that there's a big need that chiropractors and doctors like that need to get more involved in esports and kind of turn that around, and that there's an opportunity for that, or is it really that you just wanted to combine your two passions?
I think it's a combo of both. Like you said, I started gaming on regular Nintendo when I was little with Duck Hunt and Chippendale Rescue Rangers was, oh my god, and Ninja Turtles. Like I've been playing video games like my whole life, and in college I played a lot of competitive Halo, and we would just be like trash human beings. I mean, we would drink Mountain Dew all day, and you would go get Taco Bell, and then you'd put in like a 5-hour session of Halo. We played a lot of Halo 1, Halo 3, so I definitely am super familiar with that culture and how gaming um, does kind of get a bad rap for that, and to some degree, it's warranted, right? But I think you've seen a trend lately where a lot of streamers are they're streaming and they're going to the gym. They're streaming, go to the gym, and I think the culture is changing, which is really good. From the Doritos, Mountain Dew, Surge, Red Bull days, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think there's a definite need because there's a lot of people that you know don't know, and even not even in gaming culture. Like I think a lot of people don't know how to like what should I do if I want to be a little more active? What should I do if my wrist is killing me and I'm still playing? So I wanted to combine those two, but I also wanted to, like I said, have a resource where if you have that question, you can go look it up and it's there. And I was really new to the blog scene, so like the first rendition of my website looked like a third grader did it. It was bad, right? So I've progressed in my writing and progressed, and I revamped the site I think like 2-3 months ago. So I wanted to make it easier for everyone as well. So let's see. Long story short, I think there's a huge need for that, with even esports, we're seeing progressing to regular sports, traditional sports, and you need to have that backing for athletes. And if you don't, your team's not going to succeed. So I think there's a there's the general community needs it, but also the competitive esports community needs it as well because they're coming out of that community and still some people have no clue what to do.
Yeah.
So
And I think if this wasn't you, I'm very sorry, but I'm pretty sure I saw on Twitter that you said you were working a little bit with the Cleveland Cavaliers 2K team, right?
yeah.
So yeah, so what are you
I've
doing kind
worked
of with
with
them? And obviously they see the need for
yeah.
this.
So I started working with University of Akron. They have a really big. They're probably like 45 minutes away from me. They have a really big Rocket League team, League of Legends team. So I started working with those guys, and I started working with Cleveland State's esports program, which is slowly getting up and running their League of Legends team. But then I've been talking to the Cavs for probably 2 months, 3 months, and finally started working on those guys probably 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like their facility is right on the lake. It's a typical like old school Cleveland building with brick everywhere, right? And like a mechanical, but it overlooks the lake, and there's just tons of tech and beautiful monitors and everything in there. So it's really cool to see. And I didn't even know about 2K. Like I played a little bit, and I had never watched it. So, but it's 5-on-5, right? And so they have tournaments. They just finished a huge tournament in Orlando. So I go in weekly, work on those guys. It's a lot of and it's a lot of difference between PC and console gaming, right? As far as injuries.
Yeah.
So console, and I play a lot of console where you're bent forward in that terrible position like this, right? And so your back's killing you, your neck's killing you, but your wrists and hands are all right because it's in a pretty neutral position.
Yeah.
But like PC is a lot of hand and wrist issues. Like if you play a lot of PC, like you get the tingling, the numbness. And I've worked on some players that, they will go, they can barely push open a door without it just, the numbness just radiating down. And so it's terrible. So working with the Cavs is a totally different animal with the League of Legends guys. And the Cavs, it's just been so fun. Like to be in that facility and be around esports players, and to have such a good reception and watch them get better. It's been a really fun experience, and yeah, that's awesome. I'm pretty
It's super
happy.
cool. And then Dylan, I have one more question. And then, if you want to ask anything, you can. Others, I saw we had one in chat. So when you say you're working with them, are you coming in and just kind of doing corrections and stuff as like the abstract chiropractor? Or are you going in and teaching them different stretches and stuff like that? Like when you say working with them, what are you actually doing with them? Are you teaching them how to improve it, or are you actually just kind of helping make them feel better?
So it's kind of like a bunch of different approaches.
Okay.
There's an ergonomic approach, where you need to set up, and I can go on for like hours onto like the chair setup and everything, but it's like just doing little corrections, that can really help you out when you're in that position for a long time. Because you got to think about it, like when you put in a session, like you're in there for 3-4 hours, right? And if you're in a trash position, you're gonna feel like trash afterwards. Like when I was younger, I didn't feel like that, but like now I'll play like 2 hours, 3 hours of PUBG, and my neck will just kill me. So it's getting that ergonomic aspect, uh, for each, because every player is different, every game's different, every platform's different. So it's kind of like tailoring it to the players, but it's also like showing exercises, stretches you can do in between games, taking breaks, and then doing like the manual therapy, and then the chiropractor, like the pops and all that fun stuff that everyone knows chiropractors for. But I do a lot of taping as well, like kinesio taping, which you've probably seen on athletes. It's kind of like
Yeah.
a colored tape that kind of holds everything that you've seen a lot of volleyball players and NBA players. So it's a ton of stuff. Like it's ergonomics, exercise, the treatment, the manual therapy, and the taping, and then just like kind of advice like, hey, you need to strengthen this aspect to have more endurance in your hand so you can play more. Because you probably played where you've played for like an hour or so and you're like, man, my hand's killing me. Well, then your clicking's off, your shooting's off, everything's off. So if you can build that endurance up and not have that, especially as a pro player, you're going to do better, you're going to make more money, you're going to have more sponsorships. It's kind of a snowball effect. Like you want to be the best you can be, and to do that you got to kind of train your body just like a normal athlete.
Yeah. Dylan, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple actually. So I've heard this meme go around all the time. I need to know if it's true. Is sitting the new smoking? Is that true? Does that have any validity? Is sitting really that bad?
So, so I take the approach that, yeah, you know, I don't think sitting is the new smoking. I think like being sedentary and just, not doing anything is the new smoking, because it can increase your risk of, cardiovascular disease. I think the other one, like a couple of numbers were increased risk in colon cancer, stuff like that. Because as you guys know, like as you game, you kind of, you're not getting up, you're not moving, and you're not sometimes eating healthy. You're grabbing like a quick snack or something like that. So I think sitting is the new smoking is just like the catchphrase where everyone can have a huge, look at this, you should never sit again. And then so I'll have patients in my practice that'll be like, I got a standing desk, my back still hurts. I said, well, yeah, because standing's not that much better than sitting, right? Like if you stand for 8 hours, your back's gonna hate you,
Yeah.
right? And so if you sit for 8 hours, your back's still gonna hate you. So I tell people that, I think the ideal is like a sit to stand desk where you're kind of doing it, going in between the positions, but always moving positions. Because if you sit for a long time or stand for a long time in a certain position, those muscles get tight, right? Those muscles start getting tighter and tighter. The joints start getting achy, compressed. You start losing circulation, stuff like that. So, yes, to answer the meme, no. I think you got to be moving. And if you're moving, my old saying is, if you're moving, your body's happy, right? If you sit in a movie theater for too long and your knee gets crampy and you move it, you're like, my God, that feels amazing, right? So it's the same thing. You just keep moving. Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess the next question I have is, what is like the ideal snack for gamers? Like if you're trying to eat something, you're sitting at your computer, obviously getting up and stretching out a bit between games and stuff,
Yeah.
obviously. But if you're sitting, you're snacking a little bit. What's a good snack?
So like cashews, almonds, stuff like that, blueberries, um, you know, old school like peanut butter on a celery, peanut butter and apple. That's what I always like. Something that gives you like a mixture of the energy, because you're gonna get like that natural, and the banana is going to give you like a little quicker energy, where the peanut butter is going to be like a longer lasting, or like the nut based stuff. But yeah, I mean, I always say as long as it has pretty natural and you get it from the stuff on the outside of the grocery store and it's got some color, probably good. Like you can go in depth and you can, I'm not a nutritionalist, and I'm sure some nutritionalists just roast me for something, but if you, I mean, it's just common sense. Like if you can go on the outer ring of the grocery store, have some color, you're good.
All right, awesome. And I guess the last question I had a question. Might have forgotten it, but what is your drink of choice?
For like energy?
I saw you drinking something earlier, and I just want to confirm if
it's bubbly.
Absolutely, that's what I wanted to see right there. I'm a big fan of bubbly. We have some fans in the we have some fans in the chat who are big fans of bubbly as well. It's a very good drink. Yeah.
My wife got me turned on to it because I used to be a lot LaCroix, and then we did SodaStream, but it doesn't taste as good, which sucks. Because I was like, I'm gonna get SodaStream, save so much money, right? And then you're like, bubbly tastes so much better. Yeah. What's your favorite flavor?
My favorite flavor is, I mean, I'm always a fan of the classic lime. I think lime is super solid. But I've heard that pineapple is supposed to be pretty good. Shout out to PVA Radio because they recommended the pineapple.
Oh, I need to try that. We have mango. It's a huge mango fan. We can have mango flavored chalk, and I think she'd be like, we need to get that mango chalk. It's going to taste pretty good, I bet. So, but orange is really good too. Do they have a grapefruit one?
I don't know. I haven't had grapefruit one. Grapefruit's very hit and miss for me.
Because what's the LaCroix version of grapefruit? It's like pamplemousse or something, or
I have no idea. I would assume it would just be grapefruit, right?
No, it's not. It's like a crazy name. I'm not joking. It's like I swear it's like pamplemousse or something like that.
As fascinating as I think a lot of people are enjoying talking about flavors of sparkling water, I think we should save that for the post show. Because we do have one more question from chat, and that's going to be, what are the best back exercises to do following a long session of me hard carrying my teammates?
Are you really hard carrying, or are you trying to impress us?
Step number one is asking that question. Are you just pretending, or are you actually hard carrying? But
so I have this on my blog plug, but so for the back steps, depend on what you're playing, right? I think if you're playing console and in the terrible console position where you're bent forward, like I usually am, or if you're in a position slightly reclined back, like in PC, it's dependent on that. But it's also dependent on what you're weakest at, because everyone's different as far as like some people have really good rotational stability, some people have really terrible rotational stability, some people have really weak glutes, a lot of people have really weak glutes, but some people have tight hamstrings. So it's not like a catch-all, but I think the big thing is getting motion in there and getting some rotational stability is huge. So a lot of people just go to the tried and true plank, which is great, like high plank, low plank. But there's a really good thing called the supine plank, where it's the complete opposite. And it looks really weird when you do it, but it helps strengthen that entire posterior chain that's usually pretty weak on a lot of people. So I think like a supine plank is really good. A high plank with some rotational stability, like the T stretches you've probably seen. I think those are two really good ones. And then just for general mobility, it's called cat camel or cat cow, which is another really weird one that you probably aren't going to be doing in public, but it's really good. So,
and again, you can find all that information and more on forthewellnessblog.com, correct?
Yep.
So yeah, so you can definitely go and check that out there and read about that article, because that's a lot and I didn't understand some of it, so I definitely recommend just going and checking that out.
There's a lot of pictures.
Definitely. Yeah. But outside of so forthewellnessblog.com, and then where else can they find you? I think we kind of start wrapping up the show a little over an hour. So where else can they find you outside of just the website?
So the website, I'm obviously, like we talked about earlier, I'm on like Twitter. I do a lot of work on starting to pick up more on Twitter. I do a little bit on Instagram. I do a lot on LinkedIn, actually. I really enjoy being on LinkedIn because it's more of like a work environment, and it's not toxic sometimes. Yeah. It's just nice. People are on there to work, which is really nice to see. But Twitter, LinkedIn. My practice is in Cleveland. And then also anyone in the Cleveland area watching, I'm doing a presentation for Healthy Gaming for Kids Saturday,
Awesome.
22nd at one of the big esport like LAN centers here in Cleveland called One Life to Play. And then we'll be on the radio tomorrow as
That's
well.
super cool. Yeah. So if you put it out on Twitter or anything,
Yeah.
we'll definitely retweet that and all that kind of stuff because that's really two really cool things coming up there. But yeah, thank you again so much for coming on. It was super cool having you on. It's really nice to have you doing all your research and have opinions, even if you're not super into it. It's great having you on and talking a little bit about that. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. It was really fun. I enjoyed talking about esports and gaming in general. So it was a really fun experience. It was good.
Awesome. So yeah, so again, thank you everyone that tuned in for listening on podcast services, watching on YouTube, interacted with us and chat and all that. So thank you all so much for every single one of you. Really any interaction means, whether it's following, a subscription on Twitch, liking our YouTube videos, anything on social media, everything means the world to us. So please go and interact with us whichever way you find most enjoyable, and let us know what you think of the show. Give us a 5-star review and let us know what you really like, what you don't like, and we want to make this content for you. So let us know what you do and do not enjoy every week on Project Esports.
Hey, Andrew.
What?
You know, we go live every single Monday. I'm talking every single Monday. We've been live through thick, through thin, through Andrew leaving us, through my scuffed half episodes. We always go live on twitch.tv/popped_off every single Monday at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Right here. Again, that is twitch.tv/popped_off. If you missed a live show, that's okay because we put all the VODs up on YouTube. Please search our YouTube. Just search Popped Off Project Esports. Please subscribe. We're trying to get that custom URL. But if you want to listen to the best version, my favorite version, that's the podcast version. We're on all the podcast platforms. Anyone that you like to go to get your podcast, we're on it. Search iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, all of them. We're on it.
We'll catch on to this very quickly. I didn't prepare for this at all, but I am Andrew.
I'm Dylan.
And I am Drew.
And thank you for watching the Project Esports podcast. We will see you guys all next week on twitch.tv/pop_off. And as always, make sure to check out popoff.com for all of our other esports and video game related content. Thank you all so much for tuning in or listening. We'll see you guys next time.